Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talking Ted Lasso here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. It is the finale of season 2, the
Yes.
highly emotional, highly frustrating finale of season 2 as well, that obviously had everybody up in arms, and for the right reasons,
Yeah.
really justifiable reasons. People should have been up in arms. It does leave you feeling deeply disgusted with one particular character, as we were expecting this to happen, as I already knew this was happening.
Yes. The outrage was so huge that you already knew about it before you'd even watch
Yeah.
this show because it was just everywhere. This big kind of betrayal that happens at the end of this season.
Yes, and I think it'll be interesting when we do finally get on to talking about the specifics of the exact moment of betrayal
Yeah.
in the latter part of this episode today. What we actually feel about that, because I think over the course of this season, because I knew this was happening
Yeah.
with Nate,
Yes.
that
You were
I've
kind of
kind
looking
of
for
been
signs.
looking for signs a little bit, looking for it a little bit, and then kind of growing in the kind of understanding as to why that would happen.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've been giving Nate more credit than he was given,
When it first aired.
when it was airing. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you obviously didn't know what was coming. You obviously didn't know the
Yeah.
specifics of the actual betrayal of what happens at the end, or in the finale at the
Mhm.
end of the season. So I think because I did know that, I was kind of going, well, that actually that actually makes sense now.
Mhm.
That makes sense as to why he would go that way. That makes sense as to why he would start thinking that way. X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. And it's all built up, I think.
Yeah.
This image in my mind of Nate the reasonable person, which I'm going to tell you right now is now no longer my built up image of Nate the person. It is now
Yeah.
no longer Nate the reasonable person. It is Nate the petty man child.
Yes.
And that is, I feel, what everybody else thought, but maybe because I was watching it in this odd retroactive way. Obviously, that's what we're doing here on
Yeah.
Talking Ted Lasso, but I obviously don't know. This was obviously the one major thing that I did know what was going on.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching it like that, it's, I believe, made me watch it watch Nate's story in a far more sympathetic light than I think it even
Okay.
deserves to be watched in. Never mind what people were watching about it in the first place. I
Mhm.
actually think I've been sat there going, yeah, you know what? I understand you, Nate. Fair enough. It's been a bit tough. I get it. And should I have been doing that? No, I don't think I actually should have been doing that, but I have to acknowledge that I was doing that.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
weird. I'm in a weird
Yeah.
mindset with it all because it is very, very suddenly become, oh no, you've gone far too far now.
Yes.
Like very suddenly. And you know how I get when sudden things happen, it throws me. It throws me
Yes.
a curveball and I can't handle it.
Yeah.
But a lot of craziness. Do you think it succeeds in being a finale though?
I mean, yeah, we kind of jump through time even a little bit to see where characters kind of leave off before we get into season 3. Um, and yeah, kind of watching the Nate betrayal, I think this is probably my third time watching it. I do think a little bit more understanding came into play. Of course, I still don't agree with like the petulance he kind of feels, but you understand it a bit more if you kind of understand, you know, the trajectory of this character, how he's been
Yeah, if you
treated in his
understand
past,
why he's the
how
way he is,
yes,
then
how
it
he,
becomes
processes or doesn't process the things in his life that happen to him, that plays a huge part and why he ends up feeling the way he feels. So I don't
Yeah.
think we ever agree with Nate. I don't think we're meant to ever agree with him, but I think at some point you can kind of maybe understand it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, for a show that is so incredible in exploring mental health difficulties with its characters, I
yeah,
feel like Nate is a very specific opposite to everyone else who goes through who has been going through mental health difficulties
yeah,
within the show. Of here is somebody with kind of this, with similar sort of whether it's confidence issues, ego issues, this kind of worthlessness feeling that he
yeah,
kind of has, but the other people have had that,
and found a
and
way to process it and come out
they
on the
have
other
found a way to
side of it.
process it. They have found a way to work through it, and Nate has never even acted like he wants to attempt to, and that I think is the
Yeah,
important thing
yeah,
with it all. It is the help will improve your own being, help will improve your own person.
yeah,
Look at what happens when you don't allow yourself to be helped. Look at
yeah,
what happens when you don't allow yourself to, maybe because that help feels like you failed or what have you. Ted goes through a hell of a lot of this kind
yeah,
of I've failed, I've quit kind of, worry in his
yeah.
mind, doesn't he? I know we're being a little bit wishy-washy and all over the place to begin this
Yeah.
chapter, but I think it's important to kind of explain. I think it's important to kind of
Get into.
grasp your head
Yes.
around,
Yes.
because Nate is a very, very interesting character who does a very, very bad thing
Yeah.
at the end. A very, very harsh, cold, heartless thing at the end of this season. Understanding why he did it, not just from a he is that type of person point of view, but understanding why he did it within the context of the exploration of mental health of this television show is also very important, because he has never once put himself forward to actually go and speak to Dr. Sharon or do anything
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
He's so securely insecure, and I hate that because it's so
That's a
easy to
great
get
way.
like that.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I think where the other characters have done some internal work, have taken responsibility for the things that go wrong in their lives, Nate has never taken any responsibility for the issues in his
No,
life or even how, he's contributed to those things or the negative feelings he has. He doesn't take responsibility for any of that. He's
it's
just
all
take
everybody else's fault.
Yes, he's taken in the success of, like, what he's chosen to, put forth as a coach. He's taken the love and uplifting of Ted and hasn't looked inward in terms of, like, why do I need this so much? Why do I
Yeah,
need these accolades? Why do I need this attention? He's not looking at, the treatment of his father maybe being an issue with that. He's not, looking at, this uh attitude that he has, of why he needs these things. He's very much just taking it in all the positive and not doing any kind of work beyond that. So
I
I
think it's
think,
what's going to be fascinating to see him actually as a manager in
yeah,
season 3, because
yeah,
he goes on. This is no great spoiler in the wider context of the world of television, I don't think, at this point, but he goes
yeah.
on to be manager of West Ham United, who we find out in these 2 episodes has now been bought by Rupert
Yeah,
as
so
well,
his
which is even
kind
worse.
gesture of giving Rebecca her shares of the team back,
Yes.
was meaningless because he had just this plan to buy a rival.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
it'll be massively interesting to see how he is as a manager, because sure, okay, he's a sound tactical mind in the
yeah,
world of football, Nate. He knows what he's talking about, but he's terrible with people,
yeah,
and he absolutely takes no responsibility. Every one of the world's worst sports managers, the most horrifically imbecilic people in the world of football who I've ever come across have always refused to take any accountability for themselves. Have
And that is
always
exactly
blamed
Nate.
the players. Have
Mhm.
always blamed everything else, not their own, not looked in themselves. And all the greatest managers in football history have very, very rarely, unless there's a major personality fallout, they've always backed their players
Yeah.
in their talent and their skill.
Yeah, and we
And
see
Nate
Nate.
doesn't do that.
No, he totally gives up on them. They're running his false nine strategy. It's
The false
failing.
nine, the hipster formation that the false nine is. We don't like the false
Okay,
nine.
okay. Well, you'll have to break
Do we
that
like the
down.
false nine? Some people do like the false nine.
Well, you'll
It
have to
works
explain it because I
sometimes.
mean, I don't know what it is.
Oh,
So
can I
when
explain properly the false nine? It is what it sounds like in the show. It's playing with a striker that doesn't play up front. The striker sort of plays in midfield and overwhelms that area of the pitch,
Okay.
leading to other players being allowed to then swarm the attack. Spain did it. The Spanish really kind of exemplified it from like 2008 to 12 when they won back-to-back international tournaments in
Okay.
08, 10 and 12,
Okay.
including the World Cup in 10, basically playing with no strikers whatsoever. They didn't put a striker on the pitch sometimes. Like they were just playing with pure midfielders, which would just overwhelm a certain area, put the highest midfielder as this sort of false nine, but dropping into the top end of the midfield. And people didn't know how to deal with that in between the lines person.
Okay.
So they would just have loads and loads of space. And because they were so technically gifted and nifty, they were able to just
Kind of overwhelm.
excel at
Okay.
being creative and getting people in loads and loads of space, which obviously would then result in scoring and wins because it was
Okay.
a tactical evolution at that
Yes.
point. But some people don't like it. Some people do like it. We could have a discussion of tactics and formations, but it would be very, very boring. And this isn't a tactical football podcast.
No, but I'm glad you explained it. I like when you can kind of, Morgan's football corner where he just breaks down something that actually is football related in the show that they don't really take the time to go into. But yeah, so this is his whole strategy. And it kind of, once we get into the second episode, we learn that it's not quite working. And he's already given up on the players. He's very much
Yeah.
like, let's just give it up. And, because if it doesn't go well, then everyone's going to blame me. He's already kind of thinking ahead of how this is going to make him look bad, as opposed to trusting the team or encouraging them or believing
Yeah.
that they can accomplish it in this whole kind
Well,
of
they're all
thing.
professional footballers, so they should be able to do it. But what I do think is a horrible kind of way of going about it is changing, and they do this way too much actually in Ted Lasso. I don't know if it's the Diamond Dogs just like doing this, apparently. Changing the entire team's tactic drastically multiple times during the season. Like, you shouldn't actually be doing that. It can, because the team gets used to playing one way, and then if they're more used to playing that one way, they're gonna get better and better and better and better at it once
Yeah.
they fine-tune it. And then, like, after 10 games, you just decide, "No, we're not doing that anymore. We're starting a whole new thing
New
that you
thing
have to do."
is, is that normal to have at least 4 coaches like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Big coaching staffs, yeah, you can
Okay.
have big
Okay.
coaching staffs.
Okay.
But it's, maybe this is me as well, maybe it does work for some teams, but I have never, ever liked all this change your tactics around every week, play
Okay.
different formations every week. No, play one way and one way only. If it doesn't work to start off with, they'll learn it better and it will eventually. And that is when you get the great teams will be the great teams because everything just runs like smooth clockwork
Okay.
rather than them thinking, wait, are we playing 4-2-3-1 today, or are we playing 4-3-3 today? I've forgotten, which could happen if you're chopping and changing every single game.
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to be in this formation? Because I've kind of
Yeah.
temporarily forgot what we're playing, and then by which time somebody's ran past you and put in a crossing for them to score.
Yes, so that probably is kind of what our team is dealing with and why they're kind of failing at this at the big kind of final match.
Definitely.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, Nate already kind of just giving up on the team. I think that speaks to kind of what you were saying about coaches who just don't take any accountability, don't support their players, and that just leads to failure. Because Nate, yeah, he walks into it seeing it's failing and is already quick to be like, oh, everyone's going to blame me. And then when Ted wants to stick with it, he's like, why? So then, when it doesn't go well, then everyone can just say it's my fault and you can put the blame on me. And if it works, then you can take all the credit. Like in either
Yeah.
scenario, Nate,
What are you
finds a
talking
way
about?
to be upset about it because he's just all up in his feelings. He can't take accountability. He's finally gotten the attention that he's wanted, and he can't look any deeper than that. It has to just
Yeah.
stay how it is, like everyone loving him. And if they're not, then he immediately reverts back to this, uh, you know, sad version of himself,
I feel
but
like
now
we've
wrapped in an ego.
yeah, I feel like we've begun this episode in slightly different format to
Yeah.
normal. I don't know if we want to stick with it and kind of go through major character story by major character story rather than the usual kind of one episode and then the other episode that we kind of usually do. Because I think it might be interesting to keep talking about
Yeah.
Nate to start us off and
Yeah.
then move through the people.
Yes. I
And what
think we could do
happens to
that.
them in these two episodes. I will flick up the names of the episodes. Of course, we have
Yeah.
episode 11 of season 2, Midnight Train to Royston, and episode 12, the finale, Inverting the Pyramid of Success. Those are the names of the
Yeah.
episodes we are talking about today. But before we get, before all that betrayal, the actual betrayal, and
Yeah.
we'll get into the specifics of it shortly. With Nate in in episode 11, in the penultimate episode of the season, he goes out with Keely to buy a nice suit,
Yes.
and it ends a little awkwardly
Yes, because
when
Keely's super nice to
thinks,
him.
of
Yes,
course, she is
something's going on.
super nice
And
to
we've seen
everybody.
him. Yes, and we've seen him kind of maybe have a little bit of feelings for Keely because she's so nice to him, or like he kind of perks up when she says something nice to him, or like I
The
think,
thing is,
there was a
he's
little bit of that
king.
when
Nate is key. He plays it so well. Nick Mohammed does so well, and this clearly isn't Nick Mohammed the person either, who
yeah.
is, by all accounts, a delightful human being. But he's pure incel, isn't he? He
Yes.
really is. He's any little bit of smile he gets from a girl, and he is, oh my god, she's in love with me. No, she's not, mate. Right?
Yeah.
No, she's not. But you think this, and it's not okay. Okay, we understand why he thinks this. It is a mental illness that he has that he refuses to actually. It is. This is what
Yes.
it is. But he
Yes.
refuses to actually look into it because of the nature of himself.
Yes,
This
and
is the
like
awkward, kind of difficult area with these kinds of people, is that these kinds of people need a lot of help, but oh my god, do they not think they need any help whatsoever
yes,
because
and I
they are
think
the best.
yes, and I think,
No, it's weird.
interesting. Yeah,
Securely insecure.
yes, and I think it's interesting that you said kind of a mental illness because I would also kind of constitute it as an mental illness when he does bad and he does wrong, and when people don't hold him accountable, he even takes that as a negative thing, as like they don't care enough to get upset with him.
Right.
Yes.
And
So
there's one
when
very disgusting thing he does as well, where when he's, at this nice suit place. It's very, very fancy.
yeah,
Keely's obviously taking him there. He's in this really, gets this really nice suit.
yeah,
Um, then goes to kiss Keely. It's very, very
Yeah,
awkward.
she's,
With
like,
obviously
fixing his
Keely obviously
tie.
doesn't want
Yeah,
anything to do with it.
she's talking to him about, like, people like us, we just need to go for it, I know we get scared about things, but you just gonna kind of go and
Yeah,
make it happen. This is all while they're, like, face to face. She's really nice fixing his tie. And obviously there's all this go for it kind of conversation, has him
yeah,
misinterpret the situation and go in and kiss her. And it's
yeah.
incredibly awkward. And Keely is the sweetest about it. She's like, "Oh no, it happens. Don't worry about it." Like, she tries to, like, de-escalate it and not make it feel weird for him. Like, she's so perfectly sweet about it. And
Is
she
this
even
when he
tells him,
goes to the bathroom and spits on his own reflection?
yes, because that is his thing. That is his, like, bravery thing we learned he kind of developed when he's talking to Rebecca and Keely and getting advice on how to get this table for his parents. Like, you remember that episode.
Yeah.
And Rebecca talks about how she kind of makes herself really big, and that's her thing. And so Nate realized, like, his thing is, like, spitting in the mirror and, like, getting that's how he gets his kind of confidence thing in comparison to Rebecca's thing. So whenever we see him do that, it's him trying to kind of reestablish his confidence.
But it's
So,
it's a very odd way of doing it, I think, because
yeah.
it gives bad Dobby energy, doesn't it? In my this is what it's Dobby jumping up on the bed in Harry Potter and bashing himself over the head with a lamp. That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
spitting on your own reflection. You're
Yes.
worthless.
It's like,
You're
yes,
you're you're
hating.
you're dirt
Yeah.
on the floor.
Yeah,
I hate you.
spitting at the old version of yourself and, like, hating the old version of yourself.
It's
Um
too aggressive. It's too negative.
Exactly, exactly. Rebecca's is, like, very much all about herself. His is about kind of hating himself and this inner kind of
Yeah.
hate. So, yeah, that's when he kind of does that. But then he doesn't really suffer any consequences for it. So I think the fact that he takes even that as a negative hit on him and internalizes that as something negative is very strange as well. Because when it kind of he ends up confessing to Roy and Roy doesn't get upset with him, he's like, "Well,
Yeah,
why?"
that's a negative, isn't it? Why are you not
Exactly.
upset with me?
With me, because then, Keely also tells Roy about Jamie confessing that he was still in
Yeah.
love with her, and he gets very upset about that. He wants to headbutt him. He's mad that he forgave him and that he didn't do more, and it's, like, building up in him to the point where he's finally decided to join the Diamond Dogs and ask for advice on it.
Yes, Roy has. He has. Yes,
Yes.
which is
So
very.
the fact that Nate is like, "Oh, so you're, upset with Jamie that you wanna headbutt him, but I kissed your girlfriend and you don't even care." And it's like there's just this understanding. It's Nate, he's a little bit insecure. I think everybody kind of knows that about him. They don't see him as any kind of threat or see him as doing anything. I think Beard is kind of the only one who's seeing the malicious side or really paying attention to the malicious side of Nate.
Yes, he
But
is.
everyone sees him as this soft, squishy kind of puppy dog of a character. So there's no threat, and they try to understand him. So Roy isn't even upset, and Nate seems kind of offended. "Oh, like, you don't even want to headbutt me? You're not mad at me at all?" So he kind of interprets that as, "You just don't care. You don't care enough about me to get upset. So now I'm gonna be mad about that."
Yeah, it's really weird. Can we also talk about how quickly Nate seems to get grey over the course of
Yes.
the show?
Yeah, because I think it was meant to be like, "Oh, who is this person from the back?" But
Yeah.
yeah, where did that
How
even
does he
kind of
get
come
so
from?
grey so quickly?
Yes. Like, does he stop dyeing his hair? Like, are they trying to, like, show this
Maybe.
maturity in him? I don't know. But then just also just to kind of go back to him having this warped kind of idea of things, you know, Beard keeps telling Ted to talk to Nate about, knowing that he was the source because an article comes out
Yeah.
by Trent Krim uh, revealing that Ted did in fact have an anxiety attack. It wasn't something with his stomach, which was kind of the excuse they were going with, that he had an anxiety attack during a big game. And what does this say about the team? Is he, still able to coach and all of these kinds of
Yeah.
things and putting his leadership of this team into question? And Trent
Very
Krim,
very respectfully from Trent Krim as well, because I
yes,
think
because
in
he
the
sends it to him
immediate
the
we
night
think
before it even
yes.
comes out, I think. He says, "Hey, I'm just letting you know this is coming out tomorrow. As a journalist, I had to write this, but as somebody who respects you, my source was Nate. So Nate is the
Yeah.
one who told him about the anxiety attack. And so just to speak to that malicious aspect. So Beard is telling Ted to talk to him. And like, even when the article comes out and everyone kind of has Ted's back, Rebecca's like, I'm going to find out who did this, who this source is. Ted is like, no, just leave it alone. Like, and he is very much like, I don't want to bring Nate into this. I don't want anybody to know it was Nate. He's very not in a malicious place about it. He's just like,
Yeah.
because he kind of maybe understands to a degree why this would happen. And so he just kind of, leaves it alone. But
Like, he
then
doesn't even Ted doesn't even tell Beard it was Nate. Beard just knows it's
knows Nate. Yes, exactly. Um, and so again, just like with the Roy thing, Nate kind of gets upset that Ted is not more upset with him. Like, we
Mm,
see him when it, kind of comes up and people talk about, like the whole team, when they see the article, they're like, we're going to find this source and we're going to kill him
well, it's a
and all
big
this kind
deal.
of thing. Yes, the team is very defensive on Ted's behalf and protective of him. And Nate just kind of sits back really squirrely. But then when he kind of comes to his big blows with Ted, again, just like Roy, he's upset that Ted wasn't more mad at him about it. That Ted didn't
Yeah.
come at him crazy about it, because he's already in this mindset that Ted doesn't care about him. So the fact that Ted didn't care enough to get upset, because that's, and then you kind of realize the underlying reason why he did it was for the attention. Um,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
it's a
this is a
warped
really horrible scene as well.
Yes, it's a warped
When
way of thinking, and so I like that we get these things that really speak to how twisted he is, that when people show him grace, he sees that as an insult and sees that as people not caring about him. So you have to be really kind of twisted in your emotional state, in your inner work, to process
yeah,
things like that. So,
you do,
yeah.
you do, and it is. It's a really horrible scene. It's at halftime. They're about to go back out for the second half.
Yeah.
Enormous game at the end of the season.
False
If they
9 isn't
draw,
quite. Yeah.
false nine isn't working properly. It's Nate's tactic, the false nine. Nate's already shouted at the team, and he's getting very, very annoyed. He's
Yeah.
completely internalized annoyed at this point, Nate. All this has come out with the article. Everybody's backing Ted with the article. Ted's struggling with what the attention, I think, from the
Yeah.
article, from everyone, the public,
Yeah.
absolutely everybody keeps talking to him about it, and he's kind of trying to brush
To
it under
speak to.
until at least
Yes.
after the game.
Yeah.
Because it's a massive game. If they don't lose this game, they get promoted back up to the Premier League. This is an enormous
Huge.
deal
Yeah.
for
Yes.
Richmond. So obviously this is going on, and this complete and utter petulance from Nate, like spitting in the face of Ted. He doesn't physically do it, but he might as well
Yes,
be
and we see,
spitting in
and
the
we
face of Ted
yes, and knowing
at
that
this
that's
point.
his kind of confidence act, his confidence boost,
Yeah,
we picture him doing that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
so Ted.
everything he says is not only incorrect, but even if it was correct, doesn't justify what he's thinking,
Or what
because
he's even
Ted's
upset
the one
about.
in charge. You're the coach, Ted's the manager. This is a
Yeah,
hierarchy,
yes.
in that regard.
Yes, and even everyone reminds him of that, because he's like, "Well, if my false 9 works, it's a brilliant idea. Ted's just gonna take credit." He kinda says that after Ted leaves the room, and everyone's like,
Yeah,
"Well, that's how it works. Like, he's in charge,
we're a
so."
team.
Exactly, and so, Beard, Roy, all kind of try to tell him that's how it goes, like, that's the way it is, but because this is a guy who's never gotten any attention and accolades, the fact that anyone would be taking credit for his work, you know, upsets him, but Ted
Yeah,
has given him his due. Ted has given him his credit. Ted gave him that position, and when he does things right, Ted lets him stand in the spotlight. So for him to
yeah,
immediately kind of create this narrative that, like, if he does something well, Ted is going to take all the credit, is more just internalized nonsense that he just refuses to process. So yeah, Ted, he kind of has an attitude with Ted in this halftime kind of moment. And Ted kind of finally says, "What is your problem with me? What did I do to you? Like, what
like, you're
what?"
too nice is Nate's problem with
Yeah.
Ted. which has been
Yes.
everybody's problem with Ted from minute one, right?
Yes, but
This is why everybody really didn't get on with Ted at the very, very
beginning.
start of the show,
Yeah, too
because he was too
optimistic, too
nice and too
nice, and
silly.
yeah.
We've
So
grown with that, and
yes.
Nate seemingly hasn't, even though Nate
No.
should have been the one that has grown the
The
most with
most,
Ted.
exactly, which is just kind of an interesting, juxtaposition because, yeah, everyone has kind of learned something from Ted's positivity and faith in them and the attention that he's chosen to give them. And Ted kind of reveals that it's all because of, like, the loss of his father, that he just doesn't like to give up on people. You don't know what people
Yeah,
are going through. So he always tries to take that time and attention and always meet people as if, he doesn't know if there's any underlying thing going on with them. So he tries to treat people like that. And he did that for Nate. And I think Nate, has just built up this jealousy seeing Ted do that for everyone. So it makes him feel less special. He opened something up in Nate to kind of see more in himself. And then when he did, he kind of couldn't rely on himself to hold on to that feeling. He still needed Ted's constant encouragement. And when Ted was spreading that around to everyone else, it built up in him to feel this frustration and upset and
yeah.
hurt that Ted abandoned him in some way.
But
So
it
that
is this scene that makes me feel a little bit, gross towards
yes,
Nate.
yes,
Finally, I was looking for it, and it really does. But it isn't the worst thing he does.
yes.
The
So I was
worst
gonna
thing he does for me is what comes what we see him do at
do
the very
yes.
end of the match.
Yes, so I was gonna ask you, like, how you felt about what Nate said specifically, like
What is? I mean, I think I've said it. It's just everything he says is factually incorrect,
yeah,
because it for some reason Nate thinks this, but if he actually takes the time to think and look and see what Ted has done for everybody, it, why would he think this? It's not correct, but it's correct to him, and this is the dangerous thing about this kind of mind, right?
yeah.
But and like I said, even if it was correct, Ted's got every right to be the boss as the boss, right?
Exactly, yeah,
That's how being a football manager works.
yeah,
That's how the hierarchy of a football club works. I'm sorry
yeah,
if you don't like that, Nate. You should know that, because you've
mm,
been living and breathing Richmond football for decades, right?
yes,
So
yeah,
you should know that. That's not on Ted. That's
yeah,
on you. But you're
yeah.
not going to take that responsibility. So fine, whatever. I'm a little bit grossed out by this whole
Yeah, like, he
thing.
calls him a
But then,
joke. He
oh
says,
yeah, it's very, very vile, disgusting language
yes.
coming out.
He says, "You gave me all this attention, and then you just abandoned me, and I've been trying to get your attention back, all this whole time, and you haven't seen anything." And I told you, I kind of mentioned to you the picture thing was gonna kind of come into play as
Yeah,
something, because when Ted is getting ready for Rebecca's father's funeral, we see the picture. They take a moment to show us that the picture Nate gave him is on his mantle at home, in his home, next to a picture
yeah,
of his son. So we know the importance that it's in his home. But Nate just doesn't see it in Ted's office, and he brings it up in this fight. He says,
yeah,
"The picture I gave you, you don't even have it. You just have some stupid other picture up there." And so he kind of throws that into the mix of things that speak to why Ted doesn't care about him in his mind.
yeah.
So,
At this
yeah,
point, Ted could defend that by saying, "Well, actually, Nate, it's on my mantelpiece at home." But
he
he doesn't.
doesn't.
He realizes that he
It's
can't.
yeah,
That's not
there's
going to
nothing
help
he can
anything.
say. Yeah, yeah, yes.
But yeah, look, the second half of this game obviously ends up going quite a bit better for Richmond. The team as a collective decide to stick with this false nine. They all put the hand on the believe sign. It's
Yeah, because
very, very powerful, very, very poignant. McAdoo, the captain, brings everybody on over to do that, because they're all
mhm,
doing the usual kind of
yeah,
huddle hands in the middle thing. But no, they all go and touch the believe sign. Like, we are for Ted. Ted is us. This is all kind of Ted, and this
yeah.
is the exact dynamic it should be. And Nate's obviously abhorred by this entire thing.
Yes, but even
Um,
Roy, just to give Roy some credit, he's the one who suggests, because they're like, "What do we do? Do we abandon it?" Nate wants to
yeah,
abandon it because he's worried it's gonna make him, and he only wants to abandon it because he's worried about how it's gonna make him look, which is just
yeah,
a very selfish way to think of this kind of big moment. And so they're all kind of trying to figure out what to do, and then Roy, as a former player, he says, "Well, let's ask them, what do they wanna do?"
yeah.
So, just to
They're the
give Roy
ones
his
out there.
flowers. Yes,
Go and ask
exactly.
them.
Yes, and so they go and talk to them, and they said, we're footballers, we know how to do this, we can do this. I don't know why we're
Yeah,
failing at it, but we know how to do this." And so they choose to stick with it, and then that's when we kind of get into the believe
yeah.
sign and all of that thing,
It's a
so,
beautiful,
yeah, yeah.
beautiful moment. And obviously the second half then goes pretty well. They end up getting a late penalty,
Yes.
to which would tie the game, which would mean that they would be promoted. Jamie obviously ends up, expectedly picking the ball up and going to take it. Everybody, the commentators like, oh yes, well, Tart obviously doesn't miss penalties. He's scored every penalty he's taken this season. Of course, Tart's
Yeah.
going to take the penalty. No, no, Jamie goes and gives it to Danny as some
Yes.
redemptive for the very beginning of the season when Danny kills Earl the dog with the
Yes,
penalty.
yes. And
The
then he's
one
broken up
penalty
about it.
Danny has
Yeah.
taken all season was that.
Yes.
And now the second one he takes is he hasn't taken a penalty since.
Yeah,
Jamie
and
gives him
Jamie.
this
Yeah.
and he
Yeah,
scores and it's
and it
all
speaks
great
to, yeah,
celebration.
and it speaks to also kind of what Jamie learned from Ted, and, like, the passing whole thing.
Selflessness.
Yes, and, like, even when he left the team and he was on the other team and Ted just gave him the army man in the note, like, "Good job on
Yeah.
passing," because that was his thing, he never passed to his other teammates
Yeah.
in this whole thing. So just kind of a callback to that in a really great moment, um, for Jamie and his arc in just, like, a small, like, way to show
It
that, and
is. It is.
yes.
Jamie's wholeheartedly a team player, and even the whole, still in love with you, Keely thing. We don't hate him for because he does it in such a reasonable kind of way.
Yes, and he goes up to Roy and he apologizes, like, for saying it. He's like, "Yes, I'm really
Yeah,
sorry. Like, I just had to tell her, no ill will to you, anything." He says it in such a nice way that Roy, being pissed off that he even said it, forgives
yeah,
him. And then Roy proceeds to be incredibly pissed that he forgave him because he wanted to
he
just
does.
beat him up.
I mean, it's my favorite thing about the whole celebration at the end of the game when they are promoted and everybody's obviously running on the pitch and it's all very
Yes.
exciting, jumping up all over each other. And then Roy and Jamie clock each other, and Roy just headbutts Jamie in the face.
Yeah.
And he says, why did you do that? So I could do this, and then gives him a
He
big
gives him a
hug and
hug.
dances around.
Yes, and we
And
actually
that's
see
just
Roy
perfect. I
smiling,
love
which
that.
is
I
crazy.
love I love that. I
Yes,
think it's a
him.
great.
Yeah, it's a great arc for these two characters who we saw very contentious at the very beginning of this show. So I love the growth between the two of them. Um, yeah, so we get a lot of kind of great moments and callbacks in this finale episode. Um, with this kind of big thing. But yes, you speak to the thing that Nate does that is even worse than how he comes to Ted. Because when they win, Nate just walks off the field. He just walks
He
away
does. Yeah.
while everyone's
I mean, he's
celebrating.
been looking miserable for the entirety of the
Yeah,
second half.
after,
Everybody's been stood up and getting into it,
yes,
and
he
Nate's just
sat
been sat
down
in the dugout.
stewing. Yes. So everyone goes back into the locker room. They're celebrating. It's a great time. Ted goes into his office and he sees the believe sign ripped in half on his desk. So obviously we know who did that. But yeah.
Yes, that was the final straw. That
Yeah.
is some serious symbolic, deplorable behavior
Yeah.
from Nate, because that isn't just screw you, Ted, and your weird belief tactic. What does belief do? That is, I'm out to destroy you, Ted, and all you stand for, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Because if
Exactly.
there's one thing Ted stands for, is the first thing he ever did in that locker room was put that sign up,
Yeah.
and it's stayed there ever since. And we saw at
Yeah.
the beginning of at the beginning of the second half at half time, them all go and touch it. Obviously, totally finally, it's taken 2 seasons to get
Yeah.
every single person this
On board
into
with
the
Ted and his way
Lasso
of
way,
thinking. Yes.
right?
Mhm.
But they're all into it now. And
Yeah.
then for that to happen, I mean, I'm only thankful he didn't shred the sign, so it can at least be taped back together if
Yes.
it needs to be.
Yes, but just the statement of that just speaks to how broken, how, what a dark place Nate is in. This
Yeah.
vitriol he's built up for Ted, which, anybody feeling that type of vitriol for Ted is just wild. So it just shows how much of a lost place Nate is in
Yeah.
this moment. So yeah, you finally got to see the big turn, and I appreciate you
Mm,
taking the time to kind of understand it a little bit more, as opposed to kind of people who are freshly watching it. I like that you have a bit of perspective on kind of, you were really looking for a true
doesn't
reason of
change, doesn't,
understanding.
doesn't
Yeah, it's
differentiate my
n-
opinion from all these people,
n-
but
no, no, but I like that you had got a bit of context to look out for when going into this big twist. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yes,
Look, as expected, as I said, it's going to be interesting to see him actually as a manager, and obviously when they end up playing West Ham next season, which is obviously going to happen. I can imagine
yeah,
it's going to be fireworks, isn't it? But that's going to be
yeah,
fun. That's going to
yes.
be that's going to be a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
and obviously him taking all the things he knows about Richmond and kind of using that on the other side of things.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
Yeah, and again, you see this whole move as just a big act to get Ted's attention still. This
Yeah,
petulant
absolutely, it is.
need for daddy's attention kind of
Yeah,
thing. So
absolutely, it is.
yeah, yeah, really just dark turn for Nate. But we understand it, but we still don't agree with it, and we still are just like very frustrated
Yeah.
with him. So yeah, I mean,
Let's talk a little bit more about Roy and Keeley, because
yeah.
we've brought up various issues with them that they go through in these couple of episodes, um, while we were just talking about, Nate and Ted and that
Yeah,
whole thing.
they end
But
things on pretty shaky ground, which is
they
really kind of
do.
sad and scary.
Very
We
sad. I didn't expect this at all.
No, we open with Keely. These two episodes really reveal a career trajectory for Keely. Banter wants to fund her having her own PR office. So she's really kind of sad to leave working for Rebecca, because she loves Rebecca and they've become kind of best friends. She won't be working around Roy anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, scary for her to kind of build her own thing as well. So she's kind of intimidated by that. So she's asked to do this photo shoot for, I think, Forbes, like women in business kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so she's really excited, but she's also very nervous. She has a lot of insecurities about, people, seeing me do all these silly things, but this is me. This is like the real me, where they can hear me talk and hear my thoughts on things. And what if they don't like me? What if I'm not any good? Roy, super supportive. They want him to be a part of the photo shoot too. But before the photo shoot, this was when she was kind of running around with Nate, helping him with the suit stuff and the kiss. He was at his niece's classroom. He went there to pick her up, but he didn't realize it was a half day, that her mother already picked her up. So then he
Yeah.
ends up just kind of staying there talking to the teacher, who we've seen him kind of have a really fun rapport with. This teacher's hilarious.
Yeah.
She has no problem kind of talking shit about the kids and stuff. So obviously, she has a good energy with
Roy
Roy.
loves that.
Yes, and there's also, like, another annoying teacher, like, with a sweater full of lollipops, and, like, she's really annoying, and, like, so they kind of talk about how that lady's annoying and stuff like that. So, yeah, he ends up kind of talking to her all day,
Yeah.
helping her kind of set up this art hop thing that they do with the kids' art. And yeah, when she does kind of ask him if he's married, he just says no, and he doesn't say, like, "I have a girlfriend," or anything like that. And you see he's, like, enjoying talking to her, because even when, he's checking his phone and she's like, "Oh, do you have to go?" And he's like, "No, I can stay for a little bit longer," kind of thing.
Mm.
So, yeah, we see him end up spending, like, the whole afternoon with this lady, and then ultimately goes to be with Keely for the photo shoot. So now all this is built up. Keely has confessed her fears. Roy is very comforting to her. Then when they're sat kind of face to face doing this photo shoot, they kind of reveal things. She talks about how Nate kissed her. Then he talks about the teacher and is like, I spent 3 hours with her just talking. And, when she asked me if I was married, I just said no. I didn't say anything else. And I don't know what that means, but I really just thought I should tell you. And so I love kind of just this open honesty between the two of them.
Yeah.
Probably not the best time for this conversation, but
A
I
terrible
appreciate.
time for it because they're in the middle of a photo shoot and it's
Yes.
got to be all nice and suave looking.
Exactly. But even just kind of the trivial things that maybe they don't understand kind of how deep that goes, they feel like they want to tell each other. And then she reveals that Jamie said he still loves her.
Yeah.
And so then they kind of just have to sit there and they have these really kind of rough looks on their faces
Do.
in this moment. Um
Roy ends
and
up not even being in the final published photo shoot
Yeah.
either.
So the photographer sends her kind of the final images for the photo shoot. And she's really sad. Roy's not. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna call them right now and tell them to put you in." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. You're not gonna do anything like that. You look amazing. You're a boss. I'm very proud of you." But then,
Yeah.
Roy is very supportive. But then internally, he does kind of feel some type of way about it. That like she looks so great without me, kind
Yeah,
of
because
thing.
he says that as much to the Diamond Dogs, doesn't he?
Yes, and so that's when he kind of finally asks for advice because he's feeling kind of bad because Jamie he confronts Jamie about it. Jamie is super like nice and understanding and
Yeah.
respectful about the whole thing, and Roy just forgives him, is pissed about it because he wants to be more mad about it. And also just the fact that like Keely's kind of moving beyond him and he feels like she doesn't really need him or want him around, or she just looks kind of better without him. And should he just kind of let her go off and be this big boss and
Yeah.
leave her be because maybe he just doesn't fit into her life anymore. So he's having these insecurities. And I love when he kind of finds out the purpose of the Diamond Dogs. He's like, so you guys could just kind of talk about stuff and not really solve anything, and that's the end of the thing. He's like, yeah, sometimes. And he's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So he kind of like had totally
He's
misinterpreted.
into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he had misinterpreted kind of what they do this whole time. And once he kind of learns that it's literally just like, not maybe, you might not get advice, but it's an opportunity to maybe vent and have people kind of
Yeah.
listen to you. He's like, oh, this is kind of cool. So Roy has finally been inducted into the Diamond Dogs, which I love.
Yes.
But then
Well,
after
they need a replacement for when Nate's no longer there, so they need a replacement.
Exactly. So, and then we kind of cut to weeks later, after the game and everything. Keely's packing up her office and he's like, I've got you a surprise. I'm so proud of you, this whole thing. And he gives her some tickets to go fly on this like 6-week vacation. He's like, we'll just relax, be in the ocean, this whole thing for 6 weeks. I haven't taken a proper vacation in years. So,
Yeah.
we'll be on this trip for 6 weeks and then you come back and start fresh with your new job and we'll be all refreshed and it's great. And she's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, but I just can't go. Like, I've already started working. Like, I can't be gone for 6 weeks. He's like, I've checked all the places and made sure there was Wi-Fi so you could still be working. And she's like, well, no, I have to be here. I just can't go. And she just tells him she can't go. And he's kind of hurt about it. And he's like, and immediately his thought is like, are we breaking up? Because, like, you know, why can't you do this with me kind of thing. She's like, oh no, why would you say that? Like, that's not what's happening. But she's like, you go by yourself. And so the fact that I think she even suggests him just going alone for 6 weeks and her working for 6 weeks, it is kind of spelling
It's an
some not
unsure.
so great, trajectory for this couple, which is really kind of a
It
bummer.
is.
Yeah.
It's an unsure position to leave it in
Yeah.
as a series finale. I don't like it because I really love
Yeah.
these two, but obviously this is the nature of kind of big celebrity couples, right?
Yeah. The
Both of whom are
timing, yeah,
always so
busy.
busy,
Yeah.
and not like busy like regular people are. This is
No.
like travel busy and
Their career and,
constant business meeting busy and this sort of stuff. And if you're a footballer, there's obviously a lot of traveling and dedicated away time and all this kind of stuff as
yeah.
well. It has got to be incredibly difficult to do. I hope they get through it because absolutely you can stay together as long-term powerhouse celebrity
Yeah.
couples, can't you? Of
It's
course you
we've
can.
we've seen
It
that
happens.
before. Yes, but yeah, just
I
a
would
really
like these
low
two to do that.
place. Yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
low place to leave them in with, unsure things and unsure feelings. Like, I like that they threw in Roy kind of having it because, we've seen it. We've seen him kind of have a nice little kind of fun chemistry with the teacher, talking shit about the kids, and she kind of is his energy in that aspect and
Yeah.
very different from Keeley. So, just the fact that he's even seeing himself have a good vibe with another woman really kind of throws him for a loop a little
Yeah.
bit. So yeah, I like that we throw kind of different things like like they don't do anything kind of crazy big to speak to their relationship ending, somebody cheating or something like that. But we have all these little things that build up. So it feels like a realistic, reasoning behind why things might not be going well for this very seemingly perfect, functional, healthy couple. So I like that,
Yeah.
because like what could you throw at this couple that like we would really believe them breaking up because they're so good together. So I like that we trickle in, real life, real grounded things, kind of confusing feelings coming in that could make it seem like, okay, maybe there's a
Yeah.
bit of trouble in paradise to kind of bring this
You
couple
throw
down to
in
earth a little bit.
a lack of time. That's
Yeah.
what you're throwing because you can never control time.
Yeah.
You can only
Yeah.
ever have so much time,
Yeah.
and that can be the toughest thing, can't it?
Yes, and I
So
think it is very refreshing, coming off of Dawson's Creek and seeing kind of the ridiculous fabricated reasons that those couples
yes,
break up. Like
yes, it
Jen,
is.
her weird relationship for breaking up with Dawson, Joey not really sticking to her reason for breaking up with Dawson. I think just nobody
Mm,
wanted to be with Dawson. You're like, just
yeah,
say that.
this is
Just say
this
that,
is
ladies.
just say that we understand why, right? We get it. It makes
Yes.
sense. Nobody would ever want this, but some people do for some reason.
Yes.
It's weird.
Yes. So just like these seemingly kind of like arbitrary reasons for breaking up with somebody that we kind of always have to deal
Y-
with in Dawson's. Whereas
You're
here
not gonna get
we're
that
we're
here.
getting some real world kind of, unhelpable reasons that why a couple
Yeah,
would break up, even though they seem so perfect. So
yeah.
yeah,
As
kind
he's
of kind of a
only
sad note.
right.
Yes, a sad
A
kind
sad
of thing
note,
to
but
leave them.
it's only right to deal with it in
Yeah.
that way. And obviously, I think the kind of final big storyline that we get in these over the course of these two episodes is Sam potentially being courted by a Ghanaian billionaire to go and play in his home continent with a bunch of
Yeah.
other African superstars
Yeah.
in this whole grand plan that this billionaire's come up with. Hey, it's a bit of a ridiculous plan, I must say, but he
Yeah.
seems very into it, doesn't he? He's a very eccentric character, kind of
Yeah.
flamboyant character, very
Yeah, really.
easily charismatic person to
Yes, Sam really
be
likes
engaged
him.
with,
Yeah,
to be friendly with. He's a tempting force, this man.
yeah.
I think before we do get into all that, though, a little moment to Dr. Sharon, who
Oh,
has been such a
yes.
significant part of
Yeah,
this whole season and has her final day. Yes, okay, a lot of it comes into Ted's story as well, and we've kind of already been over Ted's
yeah.
story. Um, but she has her final day. She leaves without saying proper goodbyes and
Yeah,
writes everybody these letters.
Ted is planning this whole thing for her. He's gone around, collected all this money to give her as a gift, and then when he goes to her office, Higgins is back in there, and he's learned that she left early because she, just doesn't like goodbyes, and she wrote a nice letter to everyone, and Ted is like, "I'm not reading this letter, like, screw this." So he goes, and he's, like, waiting outside her place. He finds her, and he proceeds to, read her the riot act as to, like, "How dare you leave?
Yes.
Like, I thought we had a breakthrough." And she's like, "Yes, you did have a breakthrough." He's like, "No, not me, we." Like, she's like, "Yes, you've made me a better
Yeah.
therapist. Like, you've taught me that I can kind of share my personal struggles, and that makes me, more relatable to the people I talk to." And so, that says a lot, you making me better because I was already pretty damn good. Like, I love
Mm.
her. I love her self-confidence, but her awareness to, admit that like Ted helped her be a better therapist and understand kind of
Yeah.
what she could bring in terms of her own personal experiences to
Th-
relate to her patients better.
There's such a closeness that's formed between the two of them now. And
Yeah.
obviously, Ted ends up reading the letter
in front of her,
as
because
well.
she's like, it's all in the
In
letter. She
front of
keeps
her.
saying that. And he's like, you were going to leave without this and this and this. And she's like, it's in the letter. It's like, I'm not reading it. She's like, everything he brought up to her that she didn't say to him or that he wanted to say to her, she's like, it's in the letter. So he finally reads it. He's like, oh, that's a good letter. Like, he gets mad because even the letter is
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it's a really good thank you, Dr. Sharon. It's really good.
Yes, yes. But she's like, okay, I'm sorry, Ted. You're right. Let's go have a drink. So they go
Yeah.
and they're playing pinball. They're hanging out. They're talking. He's like, they're about to get another round. And he's like, I'm gonna go to the restroom. Be right back. So then uh Ted doesn't come back. She just gets a note and a beer, and she's like, oh, I ordered two. And he's like, oh no, Ted left already. And he leaves a note like saying goodbye. And she's like, damn it, he stole my move. And then she looks in the beer and there's an army man in it. So he's kind of,
Yes.
initiated her into that kind of family of the army men. And then she comes up with another beer. Here's a beer that doesn't have shit in it. So just like simple little things like that, just make this show really funny. But
I would like to
yeah.
see a return for Dr. Sharon. I don't know if it's going
Yeah,
to
I mean,
happen.
I think she'll be around. I don't remember how often she kind of comes around. I think maybe Ted still talks to her, because even when the stuff with the article came out, this was post her being gone, and she
Yeah,
called Ted and said, I saw the
yeah,
article. If you need me, I'm here." She like left him a voice note and to talk to him about it.
yeah.
Also, we did get a bit of a kind of a weird text exchange with his ex-wife. She saw the
A
article,
little bit, yes.
texted him to check in on him, to see if he was
Perfectly
okay.
nicely.
Yes, he kind of throws a little knock knock joke at her, and then realizes the time she's texting him, it's pretty late. So it's like either early
Mm,
morning or late night. So he's like, "Oh, what have you been up to? It's pretty late." And she like, three dots and then it disappears.
yeah,
So, just to kind of give us the assumption that she's maybe seeing somebody, something's going on, and she doesn't want to talk about it with Ted. And then he gets a kind of in his feelings about it and says, "Oh, yeah, this is none of my business. You have a good day," kind of thing. And she just puts like a heart on it. So, yeah,
yeah.
we're getting some weird kind of text exchange with maybe something looming with his ex that might kind of affect him or play into next season or
It
something.
it
So,
it might, but look, I forget her name, but she's allowed to live her life and
yes,
do what she wants to
100%.
do. Of course
Yeah.
she is.
Yes.
Ted's
I mean,
been doing sassy and all that business.
yes, exactly. So, yeah, so just an interesting thing to kind of throw in there for maybe something Ted's gonna be, facing next season. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, to get back to Sam, I think he's kind of our final wrap up of a character.
he is.
Yeah, so this billionaire's courting him to be a part of this big kind of African team. He's considering it because the guy is charming him. He takes him to a museum and he realizes, oh, all of these people he's paid all these people to be actors to just be in the museum, just so he could kind of talk to Sam one on one without any kind of distractions.
See,
I love
this
that.
was a little bit odd. I think the whole idea of him doing I'm going to take you to these various places to have one-on-one conversations, and I happen to either own all these places or have paid everybody as actors to be in all these places. I thought that was a weird little touch.
Very
Like
weird.
I pictured it. Forgive me if I pictured this potentially in a bit of a wrong way, but it would have felt, I think, a little more persuasive and poignant, perhaps, given that this billionaire, is his name Edwin, I
Yeah.
think, or something like
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
um, is going on constantly about, we'll bring all the greatest players from across Africa back home to play in the homeland, and we will be the biggest. It's like Casablanca or the team or
Yeah.
somewhere like that.
Mhm.
We will be the one of the greatest teams in the whole world, in only like 15 years or
Yeah.
however much that'll be. It's this grand plan. So I'm kind of picturing his whole idea in this, let's say, Killmonger-ish sense
Yeah.
of bring things back to the homeland kind
Yes,
of
and to the
idea,
people and
right?
this kind of thing, and
And
be
to the
very
people and this kind of
exclusive.
stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
would have felt much more persuasive, especially given the fact he takes him to a museum, shows him a like a Nigerian art piece
Yeah.
and says, "This belongs back home, doesn't it, Sam?" Nudge, nudge,
Yes.
nudge, nudge.
Yes. Like he's
And
a
it's
piece of
all a
art,
bit like
something that
that.
can be bought. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a bit like that. Or we go to, God help us, the British Museum or somewhere like that and see all the ridiculous things that the British Empire stole from various places around the
Yes.
continent of
Yeah.
Africa for for all that time, and
Yeah.
caused so much hurt and harm, and persuade Sam that way to say, why are you in London, Sam? London,
Yes.
an evil place where
Colonize
evil
us.
people have
Yeah.
lived, colonizers. Which would have felt, I think, a little bit actually like it's reasonable. It's a fair argument. You cannot
Yeah.
possibly argue with the argument, can you?
Yes, exactly. Yes. And we
But he
know
never actually does go that way. And I find it
no,
weird that he doesn't go there. It would have
because he
just felt,
seems
I think,
yeah.
more meaningful if it did.
Yes, and I mean, we've seen examples of Sam's pride in, in his country, in his,
Well, he
yeah, and being
loves
Nigerian and
Nigeria.
this whole kind of exactly. So, yeah, that could have definitely been a way to sway him, but yeah, I think it comes out when Sam kind of sees this guy's down to earth, like you don't even have any security, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need security because I, bought out this whole place and it's all full of actors." And I love that we meet this bald, kind of silly looking man. And he's like, "Oh, Sam, meet this guy. Oh, and now you've both met a cool person." And Sam's like, "Who's that?" He's like, "Oh, that's Banksy." He's just like this goofy, balding man in a trench coat, and we see him like furl out his spray cans, and he's just dropping everything, like just being a clumsy oaf. And this is who we're supposed to believe is actually Banksy. So, yeah. And then the same thing. He takes him to this really great Nigerian restaurant. They're eating all of this
Yes.
African food and all of these things. And he's like, "How did I not know this place existed?" Oh, it doesn't. I just brought in my chefs, and these are all my friends and actors,
Yeah.
uh, just to impress him.
Which that part at least prompts Sam to do something that I think speaks to who Sam is
Yes.
properly. Like, because Sam knows he comes to this decision, doesn't he? He's
Yeah.
not swayed by Mr. Akufu, I think his last name
Yes.
is as well.
Edwin Akufu. Yeah.
And he decides to stay in Richmond. Richmond is where he feels comfortable. It's where he feels
Yes. And
his home. The Mr. Akufu takes this absolutely horrendously and then becomes a bit silly about it when he starts pretending to,
like doo doo on his face.
yes. I
Yes.
didn't know how to describe that
he gets
properly,
he gets
really.
very immature about it. But then also, we do
Defecate is a good word.
yes, he's like choking out this mannequin, pretending it's Sam, saying, he'll do nothing he'll stop at nothing to get vengeance on Sam for his
I just
refusal.
there could have been something so genuinely poignant about that whole
Y-
story, and it
yes.
turns silly.
Yes. And I agree. But I think we needed to see something to confirm that Sam made the right decision. So I think that's why
Yes,
they chose to do that. Because then also there's the Rebecca of it all when this guy
there
starts
is the
courting
Rebecca of
Sam
it
and
all.
impressing him, and they're seeing that Sam might be actually interested in going with this guy. Rebecca starts kind of having to deal with her feelings. Like I think we read it as a pretty clear kind of breakup, but she calls it as just like a break to kind of recalibrate
Re
feelings. But
Rebecca doesn't want this.
it felt very
Rebecca wants
final.
this to carry on.
Yes. So she doesn't want him to go, but she doesn't feel right asking him to stay because she still is unsure about her feelings considering his age and her being his boss and all of these factors. So she's kind of confused. So then, once she sees he's kind of positive on going with this guy, she shows up at his place and she just tells him, you know, "I can't ask you to stay. I also can't, be clear with you about my feelings, but all I can tell you is I don't want you to go." And then she just
Yeah.
leaves. So then once he does make the decision to stay, he goes to her office to tell her, but Ted is in there, so he can't really like say
Mm,
anything. Which we also got Rebecca, once this kind of was happening, she goes to Ted and confesses to him that she has been having this affair with
yes.
Sam, that she really cares about him, that she thinks they're great together, but it's just not a good time. She doesn't know if they can be a real thing, but she doesn't want him to go. And
Yeah.
so then
And
Ted kind
Ted's
of
obviously
realizes,
shocked, but he's kind of happy about it.
yes, and he's really supportive. And he kind of realizes and recognizes to her that, like, around this time in this place, like a year ago, you had another confession, because that's when she confessed to him that
Mm,
she was tricking him.
yes.
So she's like, "You're right." So he's like, "I guess, I'll see you same time next year for another confession." So we have to assume something maybe is coming in season 3 for her to confess to him.
Does it
But
does it come? Do we get a
I
third confession?
I honestly don't remember. Um
No.
But yeah, so I like kind of this realization that, like, oh wow, yeah, these kind of huge things, like she goes and has these moments with Ted to kind of confide in him, and he's very supportive. So then yeah, he goes into the office and he kind of has to play it like he's talking to both of them. And he
Yeah.
says, I really care about you, but I didn't make this decision because of you, even though I wish I could say that that was the reason. This is just where I need to be right now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
He
then, like,
says he's staring at
at
Ted
10,
while very clearly talking
talking
to
to
Rebecca about
and
their
they
situation.
realize this. He's like, I think that was meant for you. She's like, yeah, yeah, I think it was. And she gets very emotional. So how do you
Yeah.
read what he meant by what he said? Like, do you think he was kind of officially ending things with
I
how he
don't
said
know.
that?
I don't read it as that at all. I read
Okay.
it as absolutely Sam in his own mind is making this decision for him,
Yeah.
because a factor in him wanting to stay there is also being close to Rebecca, whatever their situation is. I don't think it's
Yeah.
him saying, let's be a thing. I just think it's him saying, I want to be near you,
Okay.
whatever that means.
Yes, but I am making this decision for
But I
myself.
am making this decision for me, because then we see him. He's gone and bought a what he's going to turn into a Nigerian restaurant.
Yeah, because that whole little
A
fake
random piece of
facade
property.
with Edwin has made him
Yeah,
realize, wow, there is a lack of my culture here. Maybe that's what I can bring
yeah,
to the table. So, yeah,
exactly. Which I think is absolutely perfect for Sam. You know, as we say,
yeah,
he belongs in Richmond, loves his home of Nigeria. So bring that to Richmond. Have
yes,
be Richmond's premier Nigerian restaurant.
yes,
You
yeah,
know, it's going to be great. I have every
yes,
faith.
yes,
I think that's a great thing for a great place for Sam to end, because I don't think Sam and Rebecca, whatever, I obviously don't know, do I? Because I haven't watched. I don't
yeah.
even know what happens past now. Past
Yeah,
Nate's, going to
betrayals.
West Ham, I
Yeah,
know nothing.
yeah.
So, do Sam and Rebecca ever do anything again? I say hopefully,
Okay.
because I would like this. It's muddy, it's messy,
Yeah.
because obviously player and club owner. God help us all if that happened in the real world, because
Yes, and a huge age gap, and
Jesus.
how they, men can do it all the time, but there's this double standard. Obviously, Rupert dating, marrying Bex, who
Yeah,
is far younger than him. But if Rebecca were to do the same thing, that would
yeah,
draw criticism, because just how stupid society is, because he's only 21. Um, but
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
But
yeah.
it's I like them. I
Yes,
like them as a thing.
yes. And I love that she says we're really good together. Like, I liked that she said that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's nice. It's a interesting season finale. A great, last couple of episodes to wrap everything up.
Yeah.
Um, Back in the Premier League for season 3, so that is very
Yes.
exciting.
Yes. So,
And I'm
yeah,
led
really
to
looking.
believe did they not get a few more big name kind of celebrity faces coming in from the
I
world of football as
I
well
d
in
I
season
do
3?
believe I believe so, if I remember, but it's like, I don't know who these people are,
I mean, they got
so
a few. They've got a few in. They got a few more in season 2 than they ever had in season 1, I suppose, didn't
Mhm.
they? Lineker
Yes.
and Thierry Henry
Yes.
constantly berating Beard in that one weird episode was fun.
Oh, yes, but even, like, the commentators on that show, and I love that, like, that coach that was Richmond's original coach that Rebecca fires in that first episode,
Yes,
he's
Jeff Stelling,
yes,
of course, and
and he's
Kamara.
and he's talking all kinds of crap about Ted having an anxiety attack and saying he's not a man and this and this and that, and the other guy's just
Yeah,
like, "I miss Roy." Like, all of them are like, "No, we need to show him a little bit of compassion, like, people deal with these things," and all of that kinda stuff,
Mm,
and then he's just like, "I miss Roy." Like, we hate this guy.
yeah.
But also Ted, we just
We
to
do
mention
hate that guy.
yes, and then that just reminded me of kind of one final point of Ted, in his press conference actually addressing it. He talks about, like,
Yes.
hating this kind of disconnect in terms of speaking about mental illness in sports, and so he really kind of becomes an advocate for that in this moment in his press conference. I really
Yeah.
loved that moment for him. Yeah, and
Because,
then he does
whatever his name is, the former Richmond manager who is presented on Sky, rattles off all these names of, yes, great managers that definitely went through their own mental health struggles. They might
yeah,
not have spoken particularly
publicly,
openly about
yeah.
it, but 100% they did. Um, if you actually read into their careers and look at them
Yeah.
properly.
Yes, yes. So for him to kind of just write that off, but I like Ted kind of advocating because that's the kind of a big issue, especially nowadays that, people have been, athletes get criticized for talking about that kind of thing. So I like
Yeah.
that Ted speaks to that and the show tries to be kind of topical about that kind of thing. Yeah, and then he has a kind of nice moment with Trent Krim after the fact, and
Mm.
he admits that he shared that he revealed a source and left the Independent, so now he's kind of on his own doing his own thing.
He's
So
independent. He is
yes,
Trent Crim
Krim,
independent.
independent. Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of where we leave things. So I hope you're excited for season 3. I hope you're enjoying
Oh,
Ted
yes.
Lasso. I hope this was a good pick for me to share this show with you, and that you're happy you're finally kind of watching it, into it, and we're kind of almost done with what the show has given us so far.
I absolutely am. I mean, I'm excited for a little something we may have planned for when we do finish Ted Lasso, which obviously
Oh,
won't be that
yes.
much longer, will it?
Yes.
Because yes, we'll come back with talking Ted Lasso when season 4 does come out, which obviously
Yes.
is in the works now. But it's very exciting. It is very
Yes.
exciting. I'm
It's
excited.
a big
I
one.
am. Oh, it will be a big one. Won't be as big as it will first appear. Let's just say that, because
It's an
that
undertaking
could
for
be
sure.
that could be that could end up being something that literally lasted decades, I think. But never mind.
Yes, it'll be just a big undertaking as I think all these seasons of Dawson's Creek. So yeah,
Oh yes, if not,
If not
yeah,
more.
similar. If not a
Yes.
little bit more,
Yeah.
I would say
Yes.
potentially, depending on what we do, being very vague for a reason.
Yes, and and
But
and we'll be switching, yeah, we'll be switching probably the show's name as well, just for that.
oh yes, yes, just for this one, which will be very exciting as well. Um, but yes, season 3 of Ted Lasso obviously will start on talking Ted Lasso in 2 weeks' time. It is very exciting.
Yes.
Subscribe, ding the notification bell on this YouTube channel for all the fun stuff we have here. Subscribe, of course, to the main podcast feed. It's a wonderful podcast wherever you listen, on all major podcast platforms, for this show's parent show. Morgan hasn't seen the movie show. And of course, the main show itself, celebrating old movies every single Friday. Things have been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long. There are Patreon donations, social media links, all in the description of this show. And I think, as is only correct, Jeannine, to close us out with every Ted Lasso episode, a celebratory, promotion-winning Roy Kent impression. 3, 2, 1. Bye.